Today we're going to solve some problems from the back of the study guide for test 4. Remember, these problems are similar to problems you'll end up seeing on the test on Friday. So the first thing we want to do is isolate the variables on one side by eliminating the parentheses. So the way we're going to do that is take this positive 3 and we are going to distribute it over this subtraction. So when we do that, we're left with a positive 3x minus, now what number would that be? 6. So a common mistake is sometimes people bring down the 2 and forget to multiply 3 by both numbers. Well, we bring down the equal sign, but before we write those numbers down, let's go ahead and collect some like terms. Here we've got a positive 4 and a positive 2. So we're always looking at the sign in front of the terms when we're collecting, not the sign behind. And since they're the same sign, I'm going to add those two numbers together. So when I do that, I end up with positive 6 minus x. So another common mistake is people want to do opposite operations on one side of the equal sign. But we don't do that. We just simplify by looking at the signs in front of the terms and collecting. But at this stage, we are ready to use opposite operations because now, in order to collect or combine any terms, we have to do those opposite operations to move a term to the other side. So here I'm going to take this negative x and cancel it out by adding x to both sides. So when I do that, now left with a 4x minus the 6 equals positive 6. So I just have two more steps at this stage. I need to move this negative 6 back to the other side. So the way I'll do that is add 6 to both sides. And when I do that, I'm down to one final step. So all I have left is a 4x on one side of the equal sign, 12 on the other side. So now I have to remove that coefficient. We've talked about coefficients quite a bit. They're the numbers in front of the variable. And so to remove that, since it's being multiplied, I'm going to divide by that number. And I do the same thing on the other side as well. So we're left with an x equals 12 divided by 4 makes 3. And that would be our solution. Well, we'll take a look at one more problem from the back side in this part, and we'll take a look at number 18. So 18 is a little different because it's an inequality. Now, today's test, or Friday's test, will only have two-step inequalities. So the main thing I'm checking to see if you remember is when to switch that inequality sign. So we've got negative x divided by 2 minus 4 is greater than or equal to positive 2. So what we want to do is isolate the variable by moving this 4 back to the other side. So it's a minus 4, so I'm going to do the opposite of minus 4, which is plus 4. So we'll add 4 to both sides. And what that leaves us with is the x term. The x term has a minus sign in front of the x, divided by 2 is greater than or equal to 6. So my last step is to remove this division of 2 and the negative sign in one step. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is of negative 1 over 2. Negative 1 because you can always put a 1 between the minus sign and the x. The reciprocal of that would be negative 2 over 1. The negative signs will cancel now. The 2's will cancel, but what we do to one side, we must do the same to the other. So you can just think of negative 2 over 1 as the same thing as just negative 2. and we can go ahead and multiply those two numbers. But we got to remember the important rule. And the important rule is that when we multiply by a negative, this inequality sign needs to switch directions. So now it's x is less than or equal to negative 12. Now let's just go ahead and graph it in case they ask us to graph this. And so we'll stick the negative 12 in the center. And we want the values of x that are less than or equal to. So less means we're going to end up going to the left. A smaller number would be negative 13. A bigger number would be negative 11. Now since this is a less than or equal to, we're going to use a filled-in circle, closed circle. And x is not only equal to negative 12, but less than. Less means left. And there it is. So here's our solution and our graph as well. So the next part, we'll go over how to solve a absolute value equation, and then also we'll take a look at a couple word problems as well.